Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm going to show you how I made this wooden height adjustable shed base for this small garden storage shed.
So for the area that I want the shed, it's near the house on some slabs which slope away from the house. So if I was to put it directly onto the slabs, it wouldn't be level. As you can see, the slope goes downwards. So what I want to do is make a base which I can level myself. So I just quickly drew up a basic sketch of a shed base, and the measurements match pretty much the base of the shed that it's for. And to do this project, to make this this base, I'm going to use some scrap 2x3s that I have. So I'm going to start off with the two longest pieces of the frame, and using a speed square just mark up some lines. So the overall dimensions of the base is just slightly larger than the base of the shed, so a couple of centimeters either way. Now I'm going to make some shorter pieces, and in total I need 4. So 2x3s should be ideal for a small shed base such as this one. If you was going to make a really big shed base, you might want to use 2x4s. And it's a good job I have a multi-purpose blade in my miter saw, because as you see there, I cut straight through a nail. So just watch out for that when you're using recycled timber. So now I need to check the sizes of the noggins that I need. So the two support pieces in the middle are roughly 16 inches on centre from each other. And then I'm going to put 3 noggins in. But before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of these pieces down to make sure they're all exactly the same width, because a couple of them happen to be a slightly different width. And this also gives me a nice square edge to work with. So to put the frame together, I'm going to use these ceramic decking screws, and I'm going to use a framing square to make sure everything's square as I'm putting these screws in. These screws are great for outdoor applications because they just don't rot, and in a couple of years, if you want to take this frame apart, they will be pretty much the same as when they went in. And the frame that I made for my main workshop, I made in exactly the same way with the same screws, and I also used 2x3s, and that is now 2 years old, and the floor is still solid. So for each fixing area I'm using 2 screws. So now I'm measuring up for the 2 supports, which will be roughly 16 inches or so on centre from each other. And those marks that I've made I'm going to use as a guide to centralise the supports. So now I want to find the centres of these supports, because the first noggin is going to be completely central, and then the other two noggins are going to go either side of the central one. So here is the first central one. These help to keep the frame rigid, and they will also help to support the floor that's going on top of this frame. So now I'm just cutting down those final noggins. And they should go with a nice tight fit. Putting them either side of the central noggin allows me to get the screws in. It's very important to drill a pilot hole on every screw because it helps to guide the screw straight into the wood. So that was the main frame complete. So now for the floor, I'm going to use some pallet wood, and I've made sure that all this pallet wood is the same thickness. So all this happens to be 1.6 millimeters thick, which is plenty thick enough for a small shed base. And now I'm going to cut them all down to size to match the width of the frame. I used the first piece as a template to cut the second piece, and so on. You could also use a sheet of plywood or OSB for the floor. I'm just using what I had, and I'm trying to keep this project to the smallest budget possible. So now I'm using the speed square to just quickly square up these pallet boards to the edge of the frame, and I'm going to drill some pilot holes. And for the attachment, I'm just going to use some standard quite slim wood screws, and I'm going to use 2 in each board, because if you put one in the center, pallet boards tend to cup over time and sort of go upwards at the edges. So that will prevent it from cupping later on. And if you're new to the channel, please feel free to check out my other DIY related videos, and also consider subscribing too. I made sure to bury the heads of the screws slightly below the surface, So for a spacer, I'm just going to use my speed square. It just happens to have a thick part on it, and I want to space these boards, number one, for any expansion and contraction later on, but also so that if any water gets on there, it can drain through these gaps, and that will obviously prevent it from rotting. So now I needed to give the surface a sanding down, just to remove any splinters and to allow the stain to go on nice and smoothly. So I'm using an 80 grit sandpaper here and just giving it a rough sanding with an random orbital sander. And I'm just going over the edges to prevent any splintering too. So that was it, basically finished. I just needed to paint it and then get the adjustable feet on. For the colour, I'm going to choose some green stain, mainly because it matches my fence, but you can stain it whatever colour you like. I also painted underneath as well. And then I gave it a second coat once it was dry. So now for the adjustable feet, I found these adjustable baseboard feet which are used in kitchens. So for kitchen units to level them up. And I thought these would be ideal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach them in each corner to the longest piece of the frame, which should give it a kind of maximum amount of support. And you can see that the bottom part of that bracket is resting on the floor as well, which gives it even more support. And for the screws, I've just used a thick body self-tapping screw, and there's 4 screws in each side, so it should be adequate. If you wanted to build a bigger base, you can also get these feet in a heavier duty. So those are 8mm bolts, but you can also get 10mm. And these are really cheap online. And this will also keep any water off the bottom of the base because it raises it off the concrete, and it will allow for water to drain away from it. So now it's just time to get it all in place. I then used a spirit level and began to adjust some of the feet. And as you can see, it's completely stable and it will easily hold a small storage shed. And there it is, all complete.
So that's about it for this video. If you liked the video, please leave a like and also comment, and also consider subscribing for more DIY related videos. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.